There's new polling out from Suffolk and USA Today, and it's early, obviously. We keep saying it's early, and then it gets later.
These are maybe the worst numbers I've seen yet for Biden.
They're the worst numbers, but I think what they show is the real dynamic that is going on here. There is in this poll, I got it right here. I got two different polls here. USA Today, Suffolk University poll. Biden's failures to consolidate support in key parts of the coalition that elected him in 2020 has left him narrowly trailing Trump, the likely Republican nominee, 39 to 37%. 39 to 37. That's like you've got an extent of over 20, almost 25% of the population is now weighed in on that. And that's because 17% support an unnamed third-party candidate. Now, 37% is essentially a tie. Mm-hmm. And, in terms of the margin of error. But what's interesting here is that Biden has lost support, but he has not lost it to Trump. He has lost it, at least in this poll, to unnamed third-party candidates. When 7 candidates are specified by name, I don't have all those 7 in front of me, and I imagine they're not all going to be on the ballot in different places. Trump lead inches up another 3 percentage points, or I should say up to 3 percentage points from 2 to 37 to 34%, with Robert F. Kennedy at the top of the third-party candidates at 10%. And so what you're looking at is Biden bleeding support not to Trump, but to third-party candidates. Now, my sense is generically that is not great news for Biden, but it's relatively good news, because to lose the support to Trump would be a lot harder of a fight, it seems to me, than to lose it to a third-party candidate. Because if they're voting for a third-party candidate, they don't like Trump either. And the closer you get to the elections, when you start to see some numbers go up on, in a general election, in terms of polling, I think it becomes clear to those people who are voting for that third party candidate that they will be electing Trump in that instance. Because I don't think there's many people defecting from Trump at this point. Trump's voters are there. Yeah. They are as psyched as they've ever been. In fact, I think there is an enthusiasm, and I'm not quite clear what the enthusiasm, I need to see how that question is. In the poll, 44% of Trump supporters describe themselves as a 10 on a thermometer measuring enthusiasm. Now, I don't know if that means, are you enthused about voting for this person? Or are you enthused about voting in the election and you're voting for Trump? Among Biden supporters, fewer than half that number, 18%, calls them a 10. But it's not inconceivable to me that there's people who are a lot more enthused about voting against Trump than they are enthused about voting for Biden. And It doesn't, at the end of the day, if I vote for Biden, it doesn't matter if I do it with one hand holding my nose or if I'm doing it with a Biden flag in the other hand. The point is, who am I going to vote for when I get there? But I think what you glean from this is it is not Trump who is losing support as much to third-party candidates as Joe Biden is. And I think as we get closer to that election, it is an easier sell to people. Like, understand, Bobby Kennedy is not going to be the next president at 10%. Yeah. He's not, that's not going to happen.
But this plays into also, just to add to your point, what we said earlier, that Trump's been as invisible as he's been in a long time in the public eye, with everything going on in Gaza and with, him not participating in the Republican debates, for example. So I think these numbers will narrow once he has to be out there more. But it still is. It's immensely concerning.
Nikki
obviously.
Haley, 40 minutes ago, with only 3 candidates qualifying for the CNN debate, it's time for Donald Trump to show up. As the debate stage continues to shrink, it's getting harder for Donald Trump to hide.
It's absolutely
Who was the
not in his
third
interest.
candidate?
Yeah.
Who was it? Who were the third candidate?
It's him, her, DeSantis, and Trump is what she said. Oh.
No.
Oh, a third candidate.
Oh, Trump
That's
being
it?
that person.
Yep.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
The people who have qualified are her, DeSantis, and Trump. No one
All right,
else.
fair
has.
enough.
Yeah.
Save us from the DeSantis-Haley face-off.
Yeah.
Now, this is, according to this poll, Biden now claims the support of just 63% of black voters, a precipitous decline from the 87% he carried in 2020. I find it hard to believe. And again, Trump's black voter numbers has stayed completely static. So these voters are basically saying, like, at this point, I'm not voting for Biden. I may vote for a third party, but they're also saying I'm not going to vote for Trump. I find it hard to believe that of that 87 to 63% drop, 24 percentage points, that a lot of those people aren't going to come back. And actually, when you get closer to the election, aren't going to vote for Biden. Frankly.
And can I ask, are these likely voters?
This is 1,000 people, likely voters.
Right.
Again, we don't know how they're determining that. But these are, you take these polls as part of a larger trend. There's nothing in this poll that is, although that number seems big to me, again, the 24% drop. There's nothing in these polls that are wildly different from the trends that we've been seeing in other places. But again, I think it's, we'll see.
The thing that alarmed me is that the Hispanic vote numbers, that's pretty precipitous. And the voters under 35, that's right below that.
Yeah, supposedly Trump now leads them 37 to 33%. Now, again, that leaves 30% of them either I don't know or voting for a third party. And it's, again, hard for me to imagine that people are more likely to defect from that third party or the I don't know to Joe Biden, it seems to me, than to Donald Trump. But maybe that's aspirational on my part. But that is my sense.
This backs the other polls that we'd seen about the frustration from voters under 35 about the lack of student debt. Biden essentially, in the piecemeal approach he's had when the Supreme Court shot down his student debt cancellation, has said, has canceled student debt, but it's largely for people who've been on time with their payments and have been paying for 20 years. That's when Biden deems you're worthy of cancellation. And it's a joke. And so that's why you're not seeing good numbers on that with younger voters, and he needs to address that quickly. And then I don't understand a little bit why some of these pollsters aren't being a bit more proactive in asking questions about how Biden's Israel support is affecting their enthusiasm, because I'm still not seeing much. It's mostly about abortion and student debt. I'm sure that those are the main drivers, but still curious about those numbers.
There was a poll that showed that more Americans think that foreign policy should be a top priority for the U.S. And 5% of the population says that the Israeli-Hamas war was mentioned, I should say, in issues that they cared about. So there's, I would imagine a small number of people who are going to be voting based upon that. But again, and this is the thing to keep in mind, Joe Biden won by a combined 40 some odd thousand votes over the course of 3 states. This is not about, it's very likely that Joe Biden is going to get 5, 6, 10 million more votes than Donald Trump in this election. And it's still very possible he could lose by 40,000 votes amongst 3, 4, 5 states, maybe, in terms of the Electoral College. And the thing to keep in mind here is Donald Trump in the past couple of weeks has already been talking about, well, maybe on day one, Insurrection Act. And it's not hard to imagine, in the wake of what happened in 2016, you had 1 million people marching before the inauguration, right? The idea that Donald Trump could become president and lose the popular vote by 5, 6, 7, 8 million votes, with the awareness that he's got pending criminal and civil trials against him, and the idea that people would then come out and protest, and the idea that he would then say, we're gonna invoke the Insurrection Act. And here's the example why. I mean, these are not fantastical things. Donald Trump was banding this stuff around in the first term, and he had to worry about a second term. And he had an administration that was full of people who were there ostensibly to sort of help him tap the brakes on his, you're not going to have that same type of crew next time.
Reince Priebus was his, came in on day one, and there was a real effort to try to normalize him and make and rein in some of his worst instincts. And like, as you've said, he could maybe just be a warm body that signs into law all of the extreme, pro-industry, pro-wealthy people, agenda items for the Republican Party. But like, it became something different, obviously, towards the end. And there was so much turnover that now it's just going to be whoever Steve Bannon wants. They've already put out that plan that they're going to immediately on day one stack the administrative state with pro-Trump cronies. The lesson he's going to take from this, if he wins again, is I'm not going to waste time, and I'm not going to listen to the people who's told me to slow down, because look what happened. They stole it from me anyway. If you go back
to like 2019 and 2020, there was a real sense, I specifically remember, talking about this, that Trump really had a sense of like, oh, wait a second. I've got more power than I thought I had.
Right.
And I can do stuff. And certainly, look what he tried to do with the election. So I think as we get closer to the election, this is going to become clear. The only bright spot for Biden in this polling is that the sense of the economy that people have is improved. Economy is mentioned, top issue mentioned by 18 to 29-year-olds, 84%. Inflation, 39%. Personal finances, 38%. Foreign policy, 34% in that 18 to 29 age bracket. And there is a slight uptick in people's perspective of the economy, which is, going to be good for Biden if it continues. There's reason to believe that there's going to be, the Fed's going to cut rates in 2024, which should start to make the opportunity, to buy new homes, starter homes, to leave your homes, a little bit easier to people, which theoretically could, lower rents a little bit, but prices are still high for people, particularly relative to wages, in the middle of the sort of economic spectrum. Low wage workers are doing better from a statistical standpoint than they were prior to 2020. But in the middle there, inflation has beaten out wages. So,
and let's also say too, housing is
crazy. Both, in terms of like the rise in interest rates is actually sort of like, I think, increased prices in most areas because there's no inventory.
Yeah.
And rents are through the roof, and we just need more housing in this country.